Good morning, everyone. My name is John Snow, and I am the General Sales Manager for Central Division at Lifto Limited. And I will be your host this morning. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank all of you for joining our first webinar today in a series we call Elevating Minds. The purpose is to share best practices and discover new ideas for your organization during these changing times. Our goal is to host another webinar in the coming weeks covering different topics and guest speakers. During this presentation, there will be an opportunity for you to type any questions, provide any feedback, or topics you'd like us to cover on a future webinar. And we will answer as many questions as time permits. I'd like to start with introducing our panel of experts in the material handling field. Our first speaker today is Jamie Stephen. Jamie is the General Manager of Sales and is also the Division Manager of Western Ontario for Lifto Limited. Jamie will share some information related to IC product versus electric powered lift trucks. Our second speaker today is Jason Newell, who is the Manager of New Business Development for our Western Division. Jason will be sharing some information on lifting device inspections, which are mandatory in the province of Ontario. Third, we'll hear from Ryan Ratzlaff, who is the General Sales Manager at Badger Toyota Lift in Wisconsin, to discuss fleet optimization. And last, our presenter is Jordan Brimley. Jordan is the Regional Manager of Lift Training. Jordan will be sharing some information on health and safety training during COVID-19. Okay, let's get started. Jamie, welcome.
Hello, John. Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Today, I'm going to be talking about electric forklifts versus IC or propane powered trucks. This is a subject that's near and dear to my heart, and I'll explain why. Next slide, please. So we ask ourselves, why would we go to an electric battery powered equipment? Well, three good reasons. A, you're going to reduce your carbon footprint. You're going to save money on fuel. And you're going to improve the working environment for your personnel. How cool is that? Like, it's a win-win-win. Next slide, please. Let's talk about the financial facts first of all. Bottle of propane costs $18 to $25, lasts about a shift. Often there's stuff left over at the end because nobody wants to change it mid-shift, so there's waste there. But it only costs $68 per day to power a fast battery charger for a 2 or 3 shift operation. So your savings are $30 to $40 a day right off the hop. Next slide, please. So we look at the financial cost analysis summary, and we put this together for customers on an ongoing basis. We provide you with an example of, in this case, 2 5,000-pound units, 1 battery, 1 propane powered, 3 shift operation, $20 for a tank, $7 for hydro cost for the day. And then we provide that with an operating lease with full maintenance as a monthly expense comparison. And your monthly saving is $503 per unit, which is $6,000 a year. If you've got 10 trucks, that's $60,000. Not bad. Next slide, please. On top of that, for your staff and your operators, you've got much improved air quality, much lower noise levels, virtually nothing. A cooler working environment, especially for your operators, and a cleaner work environment, less dust. So again, it's becoming a no-brainer. But there are some things you need to consider. Next slide, please. You need to make sure, if you're implementing this, that people plug in during breaks and lunches. That's what fast charge is all about. You're trying to manage to keep the state of discharge somewhere between 80 and 40%, or the state of charge, I should say. You got to plug in at the end of the week, so you do an equalization top-up charge, so that at the beginning of the week you've got a full battery to begin with. And then at the beginning, first shift, before the first shift on Monday, you plug in into water, and that with a single point watering system, that's really easy to do. And if your units are working, if you don't have the time to do that, then you've got issues. This isn't going to be a good problem for you. Next slide, please. So, when are the battery powered units not a good idea? You said no to the first 3 points in the previous slide. Then it's not probably a good idea. If you can't do that, that's not a good idea. If you said yes in the last 2 points in the previous slide, then it's not a good idea. If your forklifts never stop moving, like if you don't take breaks, if somebody gets off and then the next person is running it, then it's going to be an issue. Also, if you're bulldozing or pushing static loads, that's not going to work. So that pretty much wraps it up. Thank you very much.
That's great, Jamie. Thanks very much. Our next presenter will be Jason Newell, and Jason's going to be speaking to us about lifting device inspections. Jason?
Thanks, John. Good morning. Hope everyone is having a great week, and thank you for joining us for Elevating Minds webinar today. I will be discussing lifting device inspections, and as John mentioned earlier, this is mandatory here in Ontario. We'll start off with a snapshot with Ontario legislation. Again, lifting device inspections must be done yearly or after or before or at 2,000 hours, whichever comes first. A lifting device shall be thoroughly examined by a competent person to determine its capability to handle the maximum load as rated prior to being used for the first time, and thereafter as often as necessary, but not less frequently than recommended by the manufacturer, at least once a year, as we mentioned earlier, and a permanent record shall be kept, signed by the competent person doing the examination. And a note here to you customers, please keep documents allocated to serial numbers, as the ministry will ask for these during site visits. Be plainly marked with sufficient information so as to enable the operator of the device to determine the maximum rated load, and that the device is capable of lifting under any operating conditions. Have a cab, screen, canopy guard, or other adequate protection of the operator where the operator may be exposed to the hazard of falling material, and when it is pneumatic or hydraulic hoist, have controls that automatically return to their neutral position when released. Next slide. Here's a picture of an 8F GCU25. And we'll get into what is completed during lifting device inspections. So we'll start. Confirm capacity plate is correct. Must be legible. Fork inspection, worn heels, fork deflection, and ensure no holes in forks unless engineered. Lifting chains to be measured for stretched and seized links. Carriage inspection for excessive play and bearings. All cylinders to be inspected for leak and cylinders drifting. Hydraulic hoses to be secured, no leaks, and inspect for cracks. Attachments, confirm data tag and ensure proper operation. On a data tag, if the truck has an attachment, it must be noted on the data tag. Overhead guard for structural damage and welds. Battery restraint for propane, and electric trucks must be secure. A note here on electric trucks, there's a battery minimum weight that should be noted on the data tag. This is very important, as on an electric counterbalance truck, this acts as your counterbalance. So battery weight is very important. Counterweight should be secure and inspect bolt as they can loosen or break. All lights and horns, battery cables, emergency stops, Tires, inspection of wear, debonding, and heavy cracks. Brakes, inspecting shoes and for leaks. Steering components, SAS, seat switch, and other interlock devices. Fuel system for leaks. Exhaust and emissions test. Next slide. So again, here's a picture, an example of a data tag on our forklift. Upper left corner is the model, and beside that is the serial number. And then below we have a note for the attachment. Again, if there is an attachment like a carton clamp or a roll clamp, rotator, this must be noted. And drivers should be reminded to confirm the D rate and capacity that this truck is rated for, and that is noted below with the lift height and with the center of the load at 24 inches, and the other rating is at 30 inches. Next slide. Here's an example of our work order that the technicians use for lifting device inspections. Again, this will be left with you. Whether the truck passes or fails, please put this on file under the serial number of the truck that was inspected. Next slide. Emissions testing. I'll be doing a presentation in future on this topic, but in short, internal combustion motors do need an emissions test annually with a lifting device inspection. Next slide. Attachments. This was mentioned earlier. Again, very important. They should be inspected annually. Proper operation, leaks, worn components, cracked welds, and very important, once again, there's a data tag on the attachment itself, and it must be noted on the truck's data tag. And then last, brake inspection. It's a great idea for us to pull the wheels on the truck to make sure that the shoes and the wheel cylinders are working properly. Next slide. And last, scissor lift inspections and non-destructive testing. Lifting device inspections must be done on these annually, and there must be an NDD test 10 years after production date, 5 years thereafter, or when a change in ownership. And during this, we do a magnetic particle testing for cracks and wear. Next slide. Thank you very much and have a great day.
That was great, Jason. Thanks very much. Next, I'd like to welcome Ryan Ratzlaff. Ryan is here to speak to us with regarding fleet optimization. Welcome, Ryan.
Thanks, John. Thank you all for joining today. I want to talk a little bit to you about fleet optimization. When we look at the definition of optimization, it's really the process of making something fully perfect or functional or effective as possible. Part of that we're going to talk today is really the first layer. If we think of it figuratively as an onion, this is really the first layer of this process. So some of the things we're going to take a look at when we come into your facility, or if you want to start this on your own, you're more than welcome. But we take a look at the number of units in your fleet. Now, these are not just limited to forklifts. We can be looking at lifting tables, things of that nature. So those are the types of items. Anything really material handling, we're going to be taking a look at. We're also going to be taking a look at the age of each unit. Now, you're going to ask yourself, how do you find this? It's not like a car where we can tell the difference between a 2014 and a 2012 model. So that age is encoded within the serial number, and that's something that we can help you identify the age of each truck. The next we need to look for is the life-to-date hours, or the current hour meter reading. The other important component here that we need to understand is available working hours per year. So typically we go on 2,080 hours per year, but we have to factor in holidays, vacations, things like that, that will lower those available working hours. And then also, this is just another tidbit, but total lifetime maintenance spend is something that's very, very critical in understanding cost per hour. And that's something that we're going to talk about further in other webinars as part of this series. Next slide, please. So in this example here, you can see a spreadsheet that we've actually put together for a customer. We've gone ahead and labeled the unit ID, the make, model, type of lift truck, and also the department which it resides in. Also, we've aged the units, and as you can see here, I think the oldest unit is 40 years old. So we've got some work to do. We've also gotten the life-to-date hours. As you can see here, we have some that are north of 18,000, and some as little as 2,000. So what we did through that then is with the age, we factored in the annual hours, and you can see some of these are very low at 80 hours a year, 400 hours a year, right in that range. So then we actually spoke to each department head and were able to determine the available hours per year within that department. So you can see some of them listed are 2,000, that would be a single shift operation. You have some at 4, which is 2, and 6,000 hours would be 3 shifts respectively. So what we did then through math is we calculated the utilization percentage. You can see here, some are right in that 46% range, others much, much lower than that. The national average that we like to see is anywhere between 70 and 75% utilization. So you can see here with 47 units within their fleet, their average utilization is 14%. So we've got a lot of work to do here. They're averaging 477 hours per year. So when we put the spreadsheet together for this customer, we started discussing what does this mean? What's this going to look like? Let's look at leasing and some of the packages that we can put together. And through that, we determined that 1,200 hours a year was going to be a good target for us to shoot for. We didn't want to eat the elephant in one bite, so we started with that 1,200. Through that, we actually went by each department and figured out how many trucks they truly needed based on that hour per year target that we wanted to hit. So we actually reduced the fleet size from 47 to 18 trucks, which is a 61% reduction in the fleet. We then increased their utilization to 37%, which is, we're getting there, okay? Again, I mentioned we can't tackle this, we can't eat the elephant in one bite. So the other thing too that's important to note is that in some of these departments, we actually reduced their fleet to 0. Now, is that feasible? Probably not. But this is where we can have the discussion and redeploy trucks from other departments with lower hours, younger trucks in terms of age. So this is really the catalyst for fleet optimization, is this data first, and then we can start really peeling back the onion even more as we get into this. So again, I want to thank you all today for your time. But let's shoot over to the next slide, please. So really the benefits to this optimization are reduced maintenance costs. Believe it or not, they'll actually create a lower operating cost per hour. Also leasing, it really becomes an option now with very large financial benefits. Smaller fleet, oh, I mean, this is great. There's less to keep track of, less for you to maintain on a weekly, monthly basis. And the great thing too is, as was just mentioned in our safety inspections, there's less of those to do as well. We do have reduced labor costs. As you're going to follow this series with us, we're going to talk about the true cost of a lift truck, and we'll find there that the operator is really one of the largest costs with a lift truck. And also we're going to have reduced safety concerns. More often than not, we've seen a lift truck being used as a lift table. Not only is that an expensive piece of equipment, but it also can be unsafe for the operators, cause work-related issues, workman comp issues, those types of things. So we can look and help analyze and give you a better understanding of products that are available that might be a better ergonomic fit and have a much lower acquisition cost and not require all of the inspections and things of that nature. So again, I want to thank you all for your time today. I hope that you follow this series. Really looking forward to peeling back this onion, as they say, with all of the rest of you. So thank you again.
Thank you, Ryan. That was great. And our last speaker today will be Jordan Brimley, and Jordan's here to speak with us regarding health and safety during COVID-19. Jordan, welcome.
Perfect. Thanks, John. Okay, so yeah, thanks for joining us, everybody. I wanted to talk a little bit about the health and safety during COVID-19, and COVID-19 is certainly top of everyone's mind across all industries, especially ours. It is especially crucial for those essential services that are still continuing during COVID and essential to our supply chain during this worldwide pandemic. So although we have continued to do practical training for a lot of our clients, theory it has been actually very difficult to do. We have prevented our instructors from going in to do theory classes. And when they go out and do practical, we would equip them with the necessary PPE, so face masks, gloves, and things like that. But practical is a little easier because you can keep people distance away, about 10 feet away. So as we're moving towards almost a new normal, I wanted to kind of go over some alternatives for your company and what we've been doing over the last 5 weeks to continue on and helping our clients. Basically going towards, looking at this, it's really forced us into a new normal. And what's funny over this is over the last 100 years, actually even dating back to 500 years, we haven't really changed the way that we've done learning or teaching. So early 1900s, 1950s, and the 2000s lecture halls, they all look very similar. So when we look back to kind of how we were doing it to how we're going to be doing it now, and teachers speaking in front of classrooms, lecturing, with blackboards, whiteboards. Now we're more into Zoom and things like that. Well, here at Lift Training, we do have alternatives, and we do have an entire online course catalog, things like transportation of dangerous goods, confined spaces, forklifts, aerial work platform, disability in the workplace. So we do offer several courses online. For those companies that are looking for kind of more alternatives, there are these kind of two options you can take. There's the blended courses and then the virtual training. The blended courses are more where you're going to take a course online for you or your employees, and then we would assign either our instructor or your in-house instructor to do the practical training. So for example, if you have a train the trainer right now program and you're not able to do theory, or even if you're going to do theory with a very small class, it's really not a great use of your instructor's time for 2 to 3 people. So what we would recommend is that you do this online theory, and then your instructor can go out and actually do the practical evaluations. Alternatively, you'd be able to do the online course, and then we would be scheduled out to go to your facility to complete those practical evaluations. Virtual training has actually been, we've been doing more and more of this, and it's our instructor basically on his call like this or a Zoom, but it's more interaction with it. So they're able to interact with those students, with those learners. They're able to raise hands, ask questions, privately ask questions. And this is something that's really interesting on how we have, what we've seen over the last 5 weeks, because there are times in a regular classroom that people are maybe nervous or shy to ask these questions. So this has actually provided a very kind of interesting spin on it, and people are able to, again, private message our instructors throughout the course, and if they had to reiterate something where they might not do that traditionally. Just like online, they can pause, rewind, stop, which I'll get into, but it's actually been, we haven't really seen any difference from what we're able to present to what we normally do in classrooms. So it's a great alternative going forward. So we'll get into a little bit about the online and blended theory, and you might wonder how we would be able to do this. So the online, there's 2 ways that we can assign your employees, and whether that's 1 employee or 100 employees. And one method is by email. Now, not every operator, not every person in your company might have a domain or an email address assigned to them by your organization. So we would do have this other option, which is a redemption code. And the redemption code allows us to give almost like this little password or a series of numbers and letters and be able for you to either hand out, text message, call with a website and just that code. And once they validate that code, they're actually get access into the full system. So just like the course catalogs I was showing you before, when they get access to that system, they're actually going to be taken into a screen like this. They're able to start the course. That price wouldn't be there because it would already have been paid prior to this, but we would get into this program. They would be able to go through all the necessary things. We spent about 3 years on this, so this is not something like a PowerPoint presentation put together. You could do this on a smartphone since 92% of North Americans actually have a smartphone. So we wanted to make this mobile friendly, training on the go. You can do it on any device. And this is something that we're going to go through pre-shift inspection, stability, capacity, safe operations, fuel sources, and everything through it. And then we also can customize it to be specific to your organization based off of the types of lift trucks you have as well. And as I was mentioning, it shouldn't really be a PowerPoint and someone reading extensive. This is all interactive. This is engaging. We hired animation specialists, technical writers, went through piece by piece, sketching every part of this lift truck to really make sure that whether you're 18 or 81, you are going to be hooked on this, where you're going to actually be engaged, and it's all micro learning. So the great part about this is they're not 45-minute sections. Someone can't press play and walk away. These are 10 to 11-minute sections, and then there's interactive pieces, the little quizzes, and this is actually proved to be even more engaging than maybe a traditional class. So as we started to kind of get into this, we realized how well this works. And when they're done, especially when they're done the practical, we're able to issue certificates and all your training records online. The online programs are a lot more than just a program that we would be able to sign out. There's a ton of data, and technology has revolutionized the way teaching and learning are done now. So instructors typically don't have tools inside your company, and we're able to provide them with those tools, almost like a digital toolbox. So from the data and analytics on how that learner did, how they can improve, the fact that they can get feedback right away. And when, for safety reasons, we want to make sure that learners are actually learning this and your staff are learning properly, because unlike other programs or other courses you could take as an adult, for example, real estate, where it's meant to actually weed people out in different phases, health and safety, we don't have that, and we don't want to do that. We need to get the person who maybe doesn't want to be there, who's forced to be there, to learn 100% of this information. We need to make sure that they're walking away with all the information, and 80% a lot of times just doesn't cut it. What about the 20% that they didn't get, which could kill them or somebody else? So we really want to make sure that we're analyzing our courses, whether you're doing it internally or by us. We want to take thousands of people's information and say, if question 2 and 500 of those people are getting it wrong, well, is it something with the program? Is it something with the question? And you can do this internally with your own program. So this data has really helped us not only get better, but see a lot of things, strengths and weaknesses from our learners. The other nice part about, as I mentioned, is about the instant feedback. So typically in a classroom, which we do every day, 30 instructors and several people in each class, some people are afraid to ask those questions. And some people, when they maybe do these little quizzes or tests, they might not know what they're getting right and wrong at the very end of it, possibly, but maybe not at all. Maybe they just get the question, they go, oh, I got 85%, I'm good, I'm out the door. And that's what happens a lot of the times. So major advantage is this instant feedback, which actually allows them to retain this information better. Some of the classes I've been in for health and safety, I still haven't known my results, whether it's joint health and safety and everything. They just go, yep, you pass, and then the people are out the door. And that's the average person. So the instant feedback is a great tool for them to remember that information and make sure they're on the right track. The other thing that we can't do in a classroom, with the exception of our Quebec division, is the multiple languages. So our courses are in English and French for our instructors, but when we're teaching this, we also live in the multicultural capital of the world here in the GTA. So we have spun a lot of our programs into several different languages. And this is something that most instructors and most members of our team are just not able to do. So because we could take this one course and spin it into 2, 3, or 4 different languages, you know, it's really a massive benefit for those where English isn't their first language. The other thing is things come up. Sometimes instructors get pulled out, management gets pulled out. The nice part about doing it online too is the pause, rewind, and stop. You could start watching on one device, you get pulled away, you pause it, and you could replay it on your phone, for example. If it's just not a good day or you keep getting interruptions, you can stop and resume whenever the time comes. And then the other nice thing is if you missed something or you didn't fully understand something, you can rewind or retake that lesson again. And that's not something we're able, obviously, to do in a person or a classroom setting. There are, you know, people and some confident people that are sitting there that might ask, oh, can you repeat that? But for the majority of people, they actually would just continue on with the lesson and hopefully they catch up with it. The other part we wanted to incorporate was a gamification aspect. And this is something that whether you're a kid or an adult, this is something that retains the knowledge. And games are such an amazing tool to teach people correctly through trial and error. And games allow learning to be fun because we all know how fun health and safety is. So we really want to make sure that people have these little activities and interactive exercises to break up the content, especially that a typical classroom teaching holds. So this is a great way to get people engaged. And then the fact that it's 100% paperless. So here at Lifto, you know, we're striving every day to you know, save the environment, but it's not just about the environment, it's about, you know, the safety and compliance aspect of it too. And that's showing the work. If you were ever looking for that piece of paperwork, we all know that that one particular paperwork that you're looking for, you know, that's the one that's missing or damaged or or lost. So we want to make sure that being compliant is storing the records properly. And although our instructors are great at record keeping and our staff is, your facility may not be. So if someone is doing an in-house train the trainer course and the paperwork is subpar, this is an option you might want to be looking at as well. And then the other thing is consistency. And, you know, we deal with some of the largest companies across North America, and they have several different branches. And, you know, putting a lot of these clients on to this style has massively helped them, not only to keep track of the paperwork and everything I mentioned prior to this, but, you know, they have an instructor maybe at every facility or multiple instructors. And that is very, very difficult to make sure that the message is being consistent and the course is being consistent. So an online program allows them to do that, and then they're able to go out and complete the practical. So you can keep your entire company, no matter where, no matter how many locations, very, very consistent by covering off the same material each and every time. And I'll get into the virtual theory. So the virtual theory is something that, again, we actually have been doing a ton of. Clients really seem to like it. We've been doing train the trainers. We've been doing just regular recertifications, whether it's forklift, crane, aerial platform. And keep in mind, any operator course that we're doing does require that practical element, and we would book those practicals, whether it's online or this. But you know, you can use several different platforms for video conferencing in this virtual training. So whether that's, you know, Zoom, Google Meet, you know, something like this, GoToMeetings, Microsoft Teams. So we've done it on several different platforms. And this is something that it does really allow that interaction. Like I said, if you had, say, new operators or experienced operators and you had something where everyone could have their own computer, that's where it does work best, especially during COVID, where they could individually ask those questions to the instructor. And speaking of online, I did want to offer this to every single person on the call, whether it's your friends, family, etc. here at Lifto, you know, safety, like I said, is our #1 priority. And we want to offer a free respiratory illness prevention course to you. So this is something that we did consult with the World Health Organization on and building out this particular course. But you know, you can find the link on our website, lifttraining.com, and you're able to go and take that course right through that. So this is something that you know, a lot of people have been really thankful for, and we're happy to share with everybody. But you know, we really just got flown into the future here, and if you didn't believe in virtual or online before, you're kind of forced into this now. It's amazing what something like this could really do to our world. And in saying that, I mean, how fast technology moving, the only constant is change, and we must be able to try new things. So especially right now, if you haven't looked at online training programs, if you haven't looked at this virtual side, we always need to look at what we've been doing and moving forward. And right now, there is really no other option. So it's a great time for you to try something like this. And the whole goal out of what we try to do every single day is to get the right information understood by that student wholeheartedly. And whether it's a language barrier, learning disability, whether they have social anxiety, a hearing impairment, anything else that could prevent someone from understanding the information completely, our job is to keep these workers safe. And these options allow us to kind of get over those hurdles. But at this time, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And if anyone has any questions, I think we're going to be passing it back here where John is able to read them out. Thank you.
Jordan, that was great. Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome all of our presenters back, and we have some questions if we have some time here. Okay, so a couple questions that have been asked. Here's one for Jamie. Jamie, what happens if the operator does not plug in during breaks?
Well, that's a good question. What you're going to find is eventually you're going to run out of battery, and the truck's going to be down. It's imperative that the battery is charged at every break and every lunch hour, whenever possible, or whenever the truck's down for about 10 minutes or more. Ideally, what we do is when we're evaluating whether this is a good program or not, we take a look at, you know, where do people take breaks? Where are their work areas? So you want to make it easy for the operator to plug in so that they're more apt to do so. On top of that, downloads that we take from the chargers on a quarterly basis, and I should make mention of that you should have a quarterly PM program on your batteries in your charger with downloads. Those would outline where people are being non-compliant, and Jason does a great job of that for us at Lifto in terms of taking a look at that, and then we can meet with a customer and find out, take a look at what we can do to help them to make it easier, make people more compliant.
Excellent, thank you. Jason, there's a question here for you. If a forklift is structurally damaged, overhead guard in particular, and repair by a certified welder, does the forklift require a fresh lifting device inspection?
Thanks, John. Great question. And in short, yes, it does. But the main point here is with the overhead guard, it's a very important part of the truck as it protects the driver. So it has to be approved by an engineer as well before we will sign a safety.
Okay, great. Ryan, question for you. How can we optimize, what does it say here? How can my fleet lower my operating cost?
Okay, so if I get the question right, John, through the optimization, you know, if we look at very low hours or hour usage, and let's say we have a $2,000 maintenance spend for the year, and we've only used it 500 hours, that's about $4 an hour. If we increase the utilization, let's say up to that 1,200 benchmark, with the understanding that we're using it more, we're going to have more PMs. So let's call it $2,500 or maintenance spend throughout that year. Math, so that's about $2 an hour. So we've actually lowered that operating cost per hour on the truck. So that's a great question for the caller that sent that in, and that participant. And we're going to talk a lot more about that in future series here.
Okay, great. Jordan, are we still able to provide new operator training during this period?
Yeah, we actually are. It's just a little different than how we have normally been doing things. So new operators actually are more in close contact with one of our instructors. So what we've ended up doing was actually, as long as there was a second lift truck available for our instructor to utilize and demonstrate on what we were looking to do, rather than switching off the lift truck to obviously be too close in contact there, then we're able to do it for sure. We've had some of our clients actually rent an additional lift truck for for the instructors to be able to utilize, while several of their employees are able to actually do the training. But as long as, we have that extra lift truck, so we're not getting on each other's equipment there, then we can definitely do that.
Okay, great. Jamie, actually, I have a question that we didn't cover off. Are there other types of batteries that would allow for busier applications available to us?
Good question, John. Yes, and for really busy applications that you may not have the amount of time you'd like to do opportunity charges during breaks and lunches. There's two types that are coming on board. There's TPPL, which is thin plate pure lead. It's a sealed battery, and it provides you with about 20% more battery life over the course of a day. So better for a busier operation. And then on top of that, of course, lithium ion, which is coming on, everybody's interested in it. Obviously, it's prevalent in our automobiles and so on. It's quite a bit more expensive, but you can put it into any operation and as busy as you want, and it will work. So you want to have an electric forklift truck, and you need to have it, and you're really committed to that program, then those are two options that you can look at.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so this concludes our webinar. I'd like to thank all of our presenters today. And on behalf of Lifto Limited and Badger Toyota Lift, we'd like to thank all of you for your time. We wish you all the best, and have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.